This lobby has standards, ma'am, and you are not one of them. The words landed across the marble lobby like a glass shattering in slow motion. Conversation stopped. Suitcases rolled quieter. Even the piano music drifting through the Sterling Vale Hotel suddenly felt colder. Naomi Whitaker didn't blink when the white hotel manager said it. She stood at the front desk in dark jeans, a fitted black sweater, and white sneakers that had crossed more boardrooms than most people in that building would ever see. No designer handbag. No jewelry loud enough to impress strangers. Just a small carry-on suitcase beside her, and the kind of calm that made arrogant people nervous without knowing why. Bradley Collins straightened his suit jacket behind the gold-trimmed counter and looked her over again, slower this time, like he was searching for proof that she didn't belong. The penthouse level is reserved for verified executive guests, he added, his voice smooth but sharp underneath. Maybe there's been some confusion with your booking. Naomi slid her black reservation card across the counter without changing expression. There hasn't. Bradley barely touched the card before pushing it back with 2 fingers. I'm sure there's a standard suite available somewhere else in the city. A woman near the elevators glanced over her shoulder. A businessman sitting beside the fireplace lowered his coffee cup halfway to the table. The air in the lobby wasn't quiet anymore. It was listening. Naomi looked past Bradley toward the towering glass windows overlooking downtown Chicago, lights reflecting against the rain outside like scattered diamonds. She had walked into luxury hotels her entire life. She knew the smell of polished marble, knew the sound of fake hospitality, knew exactly what happened when certain people saw a black woman dressed too simply standing too confidently in places they believed belonged to someone else. Bradley leaned forward slightly. Ma'am, I'm trying to avoid embarrassing you. Naomi finally looked him directly in the eye. Too late. Something about the way she said it caused the young trainee behind the second computer terminal to stop typing. Her name. Tag read Maya Bennett. Early 20s. Nervous posture. Honest eyes. She glanced at Naomi, then at the reservation system glowing on her screen. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Naomi Whitaker. Bradley crossed his arms. I'll need another form of identification. Naomi slowly reached into her coat pocket and handed him her Illinois driver's license. He looked at it for less than a second. Interesting, he muttered. You people always travel with impressive cards and perfect IDs. Maya's fingers froze above the keyboard. Naomi heard it. So did the couple near the concierge desk. Bradley didn't care. In fact, his confidence seemed to grow the more uncomfortable the room became. Sir, Maya said carefully, her voice barely above a whisper. The reservation is showing confirmed. Bradley silenced her with a glance. Not now. Naomi rested one hand lightly on the counter. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous in a way loud people never understand. Check the clearance level attached to the reservation, she said quietly. Maya hesitated, then clicked once. Her face lost color almost instantly. Bradley noticed. What? He snapped. Maya swallowed hard. It says owner-level authorization. Bradley laughed under his breath like the system itself had insulted him. That's impossible. Naomi tilted her head slightly. Is it? The rain hammered harder against the windows outside. Somewhere across the lobby, a phone camera quietly turned on. Maya Bennett stared at the glowing reservation screen like it had just exposed a secret nobody in the Sterling Vale lobby was supposed to see. Her breathing slowed, then quickened again. The words remained there in bright gold lettering at the top of the system profile. Naomi Whitaker, Executive Owner Authorization. Penthouse Level 7. Bradley Collins stepped around the counter fast enough for his polished shoes to squeak against the marble floor. Move, he snapped under his breath. Maya slid sideways immediately, but not before Naomi noticed the panic spreading across the young trainee's face. Bradley leaned toward the monitor, reading the information for himself. For a split second, uncertainty cracked through his confident expression. Then his jaw tightened. The system glitches sometimes, he said loudly, turning back toward Naomi with a smile that looked more irritated than professional. You would be surprised what people can fake these days. Naomi rested both hands lightly on the counter. Then call corporate verification. Bradley laughed once. Sharp. Dismissive. Corporate does not stop what they are doing because someone walks in claiming ownership. A middle-aged couple near the lounge bar exchanged looks. The man whispered something under his breath. The woman slowly lowered the magazine she had been pretending to read for the last 3 minutes. Everyone was watching now. Naomi could feel it. The lobby lights reflected softly across the black marble floors while rainwater slid down the massive front windows in silver streams. The Sterling Vale still looked luxurious. But luxury without dignity always revealed itself eventually. Bradley reached for Naomi's reservation card again. This time he picked it up carefully, examining the heavy black metal edge. Interesting prop, he muttered. Naomi tilted her head slightly. That card opens every executive suite in this building. Not tonight, Bradley replied. Maya swallowed hard. Sir, she whispered, the owner authorization code is impossible to duplicate. Bradley's eyes cut toward her immediately. Are you training me now? Maya looked down at the keyboard. No, sir. Naomi noticed the way the young woman's hands trembled slightly. She had seen that kind of fear before. Young employees caught between honesty and survival. Bradley suddenly turned back toward Naomi and lowered his voice just enough to sound threatening without appearing aggressive. You need to understand something. Guests at this level expect a certain environment, a certain presentation. Naomi's expression never changed. And what presentation is that? Bradley glanced openly at her jeans again. Not this. The insult hung there between them. Clean, precise, deliberate. Across the lobby, a woman sitting near the elevators quietly lifted her phone higher, pretending to check a message while recording everything through the camera lens. Naomi noticed, but said nothing. Bradley continued speaking like a man too comfortable with his own assumptions. I have worked luxury hospitality for 18 years, he said proudly. I know exactly who belongs in a penthouse suite and who does not. Naomi almost smiled at that. Almost. Because 18 years earlier she had been 19 years old standing beside her mother inside another luxury hotel in Atlanta after a 12-hour bus ride from Birmingham. She remembered the front desk clerk refusing to believe the reservation belonged to them. Remembered her mother standing perfectly calm while strangers stared. Remembered the humiliation of being asked whether they could actually afford the stay. That memory never left her. It sharpened her, built her, and now here she was again. Different hotel, same sickness. Bradley straightened his tie. Until verification is complete, your access request is denied. Naomi slowly reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. The movement was calm enough to make Bradley smirk again. He thought she was calling customer service. He thought she was defeated. But the moment Naomi unlocked the screen, Maya noticed something that made her stomach drop. The contact at the top of the phone read only one word. Claire. Naomi Whitaker pressed the phone against her ear, but did not speak immediately. She let the silence stretch across the lobby while Bradley Collins watched her with the smug patience of a man convinced he had already won. Behind him, the massive crystal chandelier hanging over the Sterling Vale lobby reflected gold light across polished stone and expensive leather furniture. Everything about the hotel whispered elegance. Everything except the atmosphere now tightening around the front desk like wire. Go ahead, Bradley said with a shrug. Call whoever you need to call. Naomi finally spoke, her voice calm enough to make Maya Bennett glance up again. Claire. The answer came instantly through the speaker. I am here, Ms. Whitaker. Bradley smirked under his breath. Of course she is. Naomi never looked away from him. I need a live operational review of the Sterling Vale. Maya's eyes widened. Bradley laughed openly this time. A live review? From who exactly? Naomi ignored him. Lobby level. Front desk operations. Executive clearance denial. Claire's voice remained smooth and professional. Understood. Logging incident now. Bradley folded his arms tighter. This is ridiculous. Naomi lowered the phone slowly, but kept the line active. No, she replied quietly. Ridiculous is owning a luxury hotel and still having to prove you belong inside it. The words hit harder than Bradley expected. His jaw tightened for half a second before arrogance covered it again. He leaned toward Maya's station and quickly tapped something into the system. Naomi noticed his movements immediately. So did Maya. Reservation status changed. Pending verification. Then restricted access. Maya looked horrified. Sir. Bradley cut her off instantly. Do not question me again. Across the lobby, more guests had started paying attention openly now. A man in a navy overcoat stepped away from the concierge desk and stared toward the front counter. Two women sitting near the bar stopped talking completely. Somewhere near the elevators, another phone camera quietly lifted higher. Bradley could feel the room shifting against him, and it made him more aggressive instead of more careful. "Security may need to escort you out if this continues," he told Naomi coldly. Naomi rested one hand on the handle of her suitcase. "Escort me out for what?" Bradley smiled thinly. "Disrupting hotel operations." Maya swallowed hard again. She knew what was happening now. Bradley was building paperwork before the truth could catch up to him. Naomi had seen that before too. The language changed over the years, but the strategy never did. Create suspicion first. Justify humiliation second. Then call it policy. Bradley reached toward the black reservation card sitting on the counter again. "Until verification is complete, this stays here." Naomi's gaze sharpened slightly. "That card does not belong to you. Neither does the Penthouse reservation." Bradley replied instantly. Then came the moment that changed the temperature of the entire lobby. Bradley opened the drawer behind the counter, dropped Naomi's executive access card inside, and locked it. The click echoed louder than it should have. Maya looked stunned. Even the businessman near the fireplace frowned openly now. Naomi stared at the locked drawer for one long second. Her expression did not change, but something colder settled behind her eyes. Bradley mistook her silence for defeat. "You can collect your property once verification clears," he said. "Assuming it does." Naomi slowly looked back up at him. "You just locked executive property inside a hotel desk drawer while denying access to the registered owner." Bradley chuckled softly. "There you go again with that owner fantasy." Naomi did not answer immediately. Instead, she turned slightly toward the massive front windows where rain hammered harder against the Chicago skyline. 23 years earlier, her mother had stood in another hotel lobby holding back tears after being accused of using a stolen credit card. Naomi remembered every second of it. The silence, the staring, the humiliation dressed up as procedure. She remembered promising herself something that night. One day, nobody would ever control the door again. Claire's voice suddenly returned through the phone speaker. Calm, precise, dangerous. "Ms. Whitaker, executive monitoring has now joined the review." Maya's breathing stopped for a second. Bradley rolled his eyes. "Executive monitoring?" Claire continued without emotion. "Would you like me to begin access intervention protocols?" Bradley laughed again, but this time, nobody else in the lobby joined him. The silence after Claire's question spread across the Sterling Vale lobby like smoke. Even the soft jazz playing through the ceiling speakers suddenly sounded distant. Bradley Collins stood behind the front desk with his arms crossed tighter now, but the confidence in his posture had started to crack around the edges. He glanced toward the security station near the entrance, then back at Naomi Whitaker as if trying to decide whether doubling down would save him or destroy him. "Faster." Naomi held the phone calmly beside her shoulder. "Not yet," she told Claire. "Keep monitoring." "Understood," Claire replied immediately. "Executive audit remains active." Bradley shook his head and forced out another laugh, though this one sounded thinner than before. "This is unbelievable," he muttered loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "You people always try to create scenes when things do not go your way." The words hit the room hard. A woman near the elevators lowered her phone slowly, stunned by how openly he had said it. Maya Bennett looked physically uncomfortable now, her hands pressed flat against the keyboard like she needed something steady to hold on to. Naomi's expression remained unreadable. That calm unsettled Bradley more than anger ever could have. "You should stop talking," Naomi said quietly. Bradley leaned forward over the counter. "Or what?" Naomi met his eyes without blinking. "Or every sentence becomes another reason you will not survive this review." The businessman near the fireplace finally stood up from his chair. "Sir," he said cautiously toward Bradley, "I think maybe you should just verify the reservation." Bradley snapped toward him immediately. "This is an internal matter. It became public the second you embarrassed her in front of the whole lobby," the man replied. A murmur of agreement spread softly through the room. Bradley noticed it. So did Naomi. The balance was beginning to shift. Then another voice entered the moment. "I saw the authorization too." Everyone turned toward Maya. Her voice trembled slightly, but she kept speaking anyway. "It says executive owner access. I have never seen that level before, but the system confirmed it twice." Bradley stared at her like she had betrayed him. You are a trainee, he said coldly. You do not speak during management disputes. Maya swallowed hard but did not look away this time. This does not feel like a dispute. Naomi watched her carefully. That was the moment the young woman crossed the invisible line between employee and witness. Bradley opened the locked drawer behind the counter again, pulled out Naomi's black executive card, and held it between two fingers. Cards can be forged, he announced to the room. Status can be fabricated online. Luxury fraud happens every day. Naomi tilted her head slightly. Then scan it. Bradley hesitated, just for a second, but everyone saw it. Maya noticed first. So did the guests filming quietly near the lounge. Bradley recovered quickly and slammed the drawer shut again instead. We are done entertaining this. Naomi looked at the drawer, then back at him. You are afraid to scan it because the system will expose you. Bradley's jaw tightened instantly. Security, he called sharply toward the entrance. A tall white security guard named Derek Shaw stepped into the lobby almost immediately, his dark uniform crisp under the chandelier lights. He walked toward the front desk with the relaxed confidence of someone used to removing problems for wealthy people. Bradley pointed directly at Naomi. This guest is refusing to cooperate with verification procedures. Derek nodded once and turned toward Naomi. Ma'am, I am going to ask you to step away from the desk. Naomi did not move. For what reason? Derek kept his tone polite, but distant. Disruption of hotel operations. Naomi almost smiled again. Different city. Different lobby. Same language. She remembered being 26 years old standing outside a luxury conference in Dallas after security questioned whether she belonged in the executive section despite carrying a valid invitation. Back then, she had still tried explaining herself. That version of Naomi Whitaker no longer existed. Derek glanced briefly at her suitcase beside the counter. Let us make this easier for everyone. Naomi's eyes lowered slowly to his hand as he reached toward the suitcase handle. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Naomi Whitaker's eyes followed Derek Shaw's hand as it reached toward the handle of her suitcase. The movement was slow, careful, the kind of gesture people used when they thought authority automatically belonged to them. Derek kept his voice measured, almost rehearsed. Ma'am, let us avoid making this situation more uncomfortable. Naomi looked from his hand to his face. You think I am the one making this uncomfortable? Derek hesitated, only briefly, but long enough for the room to feel it. Bradley Collins stepped in immediately before the silence could expose him further. She has refused verification, he announced loudly toward the guests, now openly watching from every corner of the lobby. At this point, she is trespassing on private executive property. The word trespassing landed hard. A sharp inhale moved through the crowd near the lounge area. Maya Bennett looked horrified. Sir, she said carefully, the reservation is still active in the system. Bradley spun toward her so fast his suit jacket flared behind him. Enough. Maya froze again, but this time her fear looked different. Less uncertain, more angry. Naomi noticed it. So did the older woman standing beside the elevators with her phone raised chest high. Derek kept one hand resting lightly on the suitcase handle now. Please come with me, he said. Naomi remained completely still. Take your hand off my property. The sentence was quiet, calm, but something about it caused Derek to slowly release the handle without realizing he had done it. Bradley saw the hesitation and immediately grew louder. This is exactly the problem, he snapped. People walk in here dressed however they want, demanding access to spaces they clearly do not belong in. The businessman near the fireplace frowned openly now. You keep saying belong, he muttered. Bradley ignored him. Naomi looked around the lobby slowly. Expensive chandeliers, velvet chairs, marble floors polished enough to reflect the ceiling lights like water. She knew every detail of this hotel because she had approved the redesign herself 8 months earlier. The irony sat heavy in her chest. Being denied access to a building she had rebuilt from the ground up. Her phone remained in her hand, the line with Claire still active. Claire had not spoken in almost 2 minutes. She did not need to. Naomi knew exactly what was happening on the other end. Corporate logs were opening. Internal access histories were being reviewed. Every security camera in the lobby was likely already archived. Bradley had no idea the clock had started running against him the second he touched her. Reservation status. Ma'am. Derek tried again, softer this time. We can resolve this outside. Naomi looked directly at him. No. What happens in this lobby stays in this lobby. The sentence settled over the room like a warning. Then came the moment Naomi would remember long after the night ended. Bradley reached into the locked drawer again, pulled out her executive access card, and held it up between two fingers in front of the entire lobby. This card means nothing until I say it does. Maya actually stepped forward this time. Sir, please. Bradley ignored her completely. People think luxury is something they can imitate, he continued loudly. But real class is obvious the moment someone walks through the door. Naomi felt something cold move through her chest then. Not anger. Recognition. Because she had heard versions of that sentence her entire life. At 16, when a department store clerk followed her mother through every aisle during Christmas shopping. At 24, when an investor asked if she was really the founder of her own startup. At 31, when another hotel executive told her she was too urban to lead luxury hospitality. Every memory stood in that lobby with her now. Every humiliation. Every stare disguised as professionalism. Bradley mistook her silence for weakness again. He smiled slightly and placed the card back into the drawer. Now, he said coldly, either leave voluntarily or security will escort you out. Naomi slowly lifted the phone back toward her ear. Claire. Her assistant answered instantly. Yes, Ms. Whitaker. Naomi's eyes never left Bradley Collins. Begin intervention. The entire lobby went still. The moment Naomi Whitaker said the words begin intervention, the atmosphere inside the Sterling Vale shifted so sharply it felt like pressure dropping before a storm. Bradley Collins stood frozen behind the front desk for half a second, trying to decide whether to laugh again or finally take her seriously. He chose arrogance. You hear that? He said loudly toward the guests nearby. She thinks she can order people around because she made one phone call. Nobody laughed this time. Not even Derek Shaw. The security guard remained standing near Naomi's suitcase, but the certainty in his posture had disappeared. Maya Bennett stared at the computer monitor in front of her as new windows suddenly began opening across the reservation system automatically. Audit requests. Executive review notifications. Internal access alerts. Her breathing quickened. Sir, she whispered again toward Bradley. Something is happening to the network. Bradley walked quickly toward her station. Move. Maya stepped aside immediately as he leaned over the keyboard. His fingers moved fast across the controls, trying to override the incoming notifications. But every time he cleared one warning, another appeared. Executive compliance review active. Lobby access monitoring enabled. Management credentials pending verification. Bradley's face lost color little by little. Naomi watched him calmly from the other side of the counter. What did you do? He demanded. Naomi's voice stayed level. I gave you every opportunity to stop. The rain outside intensified, streaking silver against the giant windows overlooking downtown Chicago. Guests no longer pretended not to watch. Some stood openly now near the concierge desk. Others held phones chest high, recording every second. The lobby no longer belonged to Bradley Collins. It belonged to the truth catching up with him. Claire's voice returned through Naomi's phone. Executive review confirms unauthorized denial of owner-level access. Maya's eyes widened again. Bradley snapped toward the phone. Who is this? Claire ignored him completely. Additional findings show manual alteration of reservation status from confirmed to restricted by on-site management credentials. Silence slammed into the lobby. Maya slowly looked at Bradley. Derek did too. Bradley pointed toward the computer immediately. The system is wrong. Claire continued without emotion. Surveillance archives have also been preserved. Naomi finally stepped closer to the counter. Not aggressively. Just enough to make Bradley instinctively lean backward. You changed my reservation because you decided I did not look like someone who could afford to stand here. Bradley shook his head. Quickly. That is not what happened. Naomi's eyes narrowed slightly. Then explain the comments about presentation. Explain the word belong. Bradley opened his mouth, but nothing came out immediately. Because for the first time that night, the lobby was no longer hearing his version first. Derek shifted uncomfortably beside the front desk. Bradley, he muttered under his breath. Maybe we should pause this. Bradley rounded on him instantly. Do not start. But Derek was already backing away from the situation emotionally. He had worked security long enough to recognize when power was changing directions. Maya looked down at the glowing screen again. Then her face went pale. Sir, she whispered. Bradley slammed one hand onto the counter. What now? Maya swallowed hard. Your management credentials just got flagged. Bradley grabbed the keyboard and typed furiously. Access denied flashed across the monitor in bright red letters. He tried again. Same result. The businessman near the fireplace let out a low breath. One of the women near the elevators whispered, "Oh my God." Naomi remained perfectly still while Bradley's confidence started collapsing in real time. He reached for the locked drawer containing her executive access card. The drawer would not open. Bradley pulled harder this time. Locked. Electronic override active. His face changed completely then. For the first time all night, real fear entered the room. Claire spoke again through the phone speaker, calm and precise as a closing door. Management intervention protocol has now been authorized by executive ownership. Naomi looked directly at Bradley Collins. You spent the last 20 minutes deciding who belonged in this hotel. Bradley stared at the locked drawer in disbelief. Naomi's voice lowered slightly. Now the hotel is deciding whether you belong here at all. Bradley Collins grabbed the keyboard again, like force alone could reverse what was happening. His fingers slammed across the controls faster now, but every attempt ended the same way. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. The red warning box reflected against his face under the warm gold lobby lights, making him look smaller. With every passing second, Naomi Whitaker stood quietly on the other side of the counter, one hand resting lightly on the handle of her suitcase while the rain hammered against the towering glass windows behind her. The Sterling Vale lobby no longer felt luxurious. It felt exposed. Derek Shaw stepped farther away from the front desk now, no longer standing beside Bradley, but not fully leaving either. The security guard kept glancing between Naomi and the glowing computer screen as if trying to understand how badly he had misread the situation. Maya Bennett stared openly at the system monitor. Then another notification appeared. Executive ownership confirmation complete. Her mouth parted slightly. Bradley saw it too. No, he muttered immediately. No, that is not possible. Naomi finally stepped closer to the counter. Her voice stayed calm enough to make the silence around her louder. You asked who I thought I was. Bradley looked up slowly. Naomi's eyes locked onto his. I am Naomi Whitaker. The entire lobby stood still. Even the jazz music overhead seemed distant now. Maya looked between Naomi and the screen again like she needed to confirm reality twice. Then she whispered the words before anyone else could. She is the owner. The sentence moved through the room like electricity. One of the women recording near the elevators covered her mouth. The businessman beside the fireplace stared directly at Bradley Collins with open disbelief. Derek's posture changed completely. Bradley shook his head hard. No, there has to be some mistake. Claire's voice returned through the phone speaker with cold precision. Identity confirmed through executive authorization records. Naomi Whitaker is majority owner and executive chair of Whitaker Lux Holdings, parent company of the Sterling Vale. Bradley's face drained completely of confidence. Naomi never raised her voice. She did not need to. You denied me access to my own penthouse suite because you decided a black woman in jeans could not possibly belong there. Bradley opened his mouth quickly. That is not what this was. Naomi cut through him immediately. Then what was it? Silence. Heavy. Public. Final. Bradley searched the room for support, but there was none left to find. Maya was staring at him with disappointment now instead of fear. Derek had already stepped fully away from the counter. Even the guests filming no longer looked shocked. They looked vindicated. Naomi took one slow breath before continuing. You looked at my clothes before you looked at the reservation. You questioned my card before you scanned it. You locked executive property inside a desk drawer because you thought power could only look one way. Bradley's hands trembled slightly against the counter edge. I was following procedure. Naomi almost smiled at that. Almost. Procedure does not explain prejudice. The sentence hit harder than shouting ever could have. Claire spoke again. Executive intervention ready for final authorization. Naomi kept her eyes on Bradley Collins. Do it. At that exact moment, the badge clipped to Bradley's suit jacket flashed red. A sharp electronic tone echoed across the lobby. Bradley grabbed the badge instantly and stared at it in disbelief. Then the computer monitor in front of him went black before restarting with a single message filling the screen. Management access revoked. Authorized by Executive Chair Naomi Whitaker. A quiet gasp moved through the lobby. Derek looked down at his own security tablet as alerts began appearing across his device too. Maya stepped backward slowly from the front desk, like she was witnessing a building collapse from the inside. Bradley reached again for the locked drawer holding Naomi's executive card. The drawer remained sealed shut. Naomi's voice lowered slightly as she watched him struggle against a system that no longer recognized him. You spent your entire night trying to lock me out. Bradley looked up at her helplessly now. Naomi's expression never changed. One phone call later, the hotel locked you out instead. Bradley Collins stared at the darkened monitor in front of him like the screen itself had betrayed him. The red light flashing across his access badge reflected faintly against the polished marble counter, while whispers spread through the Sterling Vale lobby in waves. Nobody was pretending not to watch anymore. Phones were fully raised now. Guests stood openly near the concierge desk and elevators, recording every second of the collapse happening in front of them. Naomi Whitaker remained calm in the center of it all, one hand resting lightly on her suitcase while rain rolled down the giant lobby windows behind her like silver curtains. Bradley finally looked up at her again, but the arrogance that had filled his face earlier was gone completely. Ms. Whitaker, he said quickly, forcing professionalism back into his voice. There has clearly been a misunderstanding. Naomi's expression did not move. No, she replied softly. There was an assumption. The sentence hit the room harder than anger could have. Derek Shaw quietly unclipped his own security earpiece, no longer standing beside Bradley, but several feet away now, creating distance from a man the system itself had already abandoned. Maya Bennett looked between Naomi and the frozen management terminal with wide eyes. Then another alert appeared across the screen. Executive directive confirmed. Front desk management suspended pending investigation. Bradley read the words twice before panic finally overtook denial. You cannot do this publicly, he whispered. Naomi tilted her head slightly. Publicly? Bradley lowered his voice further. Please, let us discuss this privately upstairs. Naomi almost smiled again. Almost. You wanted me removed publicly. Silence swallowed the lobby whole. Bradley glanced around and saw what Naomi already understood. Every witness in that room had become part of the story now. The businessman near the fireplace shook his head slowly in disbelief. One of the women filming whispered, he really thought she did not belong here. Maya finally stepped fully away from the front desk and walked around the counter toward Naomi. Her hands still trembled slightly, but her voice came out steadier this time. Ms. Whitaker, she said quietly, I am sorry. Naomi looked at her carefully. For what? Maya swallowed hard. For standing there too long before speaking up. Naomi held her gaze for a moment. Then she nodded once. You spoke when it mattered. Bradley suddenly grabbed for the locked drawer again where Naomi's executive access card remained sealed inside. The drawer refused to open. He pulled harder, frustration cracking through his voice now. Why is this thing still locked? Claire answered calmly through the phone speaker. Executive assets remain secured until retrieved by ownership. The words landed like another door closing. Bradley stepped backward from the counter slowly, looking smaller than the expensive suit he wore. Naomi finally walked forward and stopped directly in front of him. You know what the worst part of this is? She asked quietly. Bradley said nothing. Naomi looked around the glittering lobby he had controlled just 20 minutes earlier. You never once asked who I was before deciding what I deserved. Bradley lowered his eyes. Naomi continued. You saw a black woman dressed simply and created an entire story in your head before I even finished checking in. Derek shifted uncomfortably beside the entrance. Maya looked down at the floor. Even the guests recording had gone quiet now. Naomi's voice remained controlled, but every word cut clean. People like you always think discrimination has to sound loud to count. But sometimes it sounds like forced smiles. Delayed service. Extra verification. Suspicion disguised as policy. Bradley tried once more to recover himself. I was only protecting the hotel. Naomi looked directly into his eyes. From its owner? The lobby fell silent again. Claire's voice returned one final time through the phone. Ms. Whitaker, replacement management, is en route. Temporary access authority has been transferred to trainee employee Maya Bennett until executive staff arrives. Maya's eyes widened instantly. Me? Naomi nodded once. Do not make the same mistakes he did. Then she finally extended her hand toward the locked drawer. The electronic seal clicked open immediately. Bradley stared at it in disbelief, while Naomi calmly retrieved her black executive card. She slid it into her coat pocket without breaking eye contact. "That sound," she said quietly, "is what accountability feels like." The Sterling Vale lobby remained completely silent after Naomi Whitaker slipped the black executive card back into her coat pocket. Rain continued sliding down the massive glass windows overlooking downtown Chicago, but inside the hotel, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It felt less like a luxury lobby now and more like a courtroom after the verdict had already been delivered. Bradley Collins stood behind the front desk staring at the dark management monitor that no longer recognized him. His access badge still flashed red against his suit jacket every few seconds. Each pulse another reminder that the authority he wore so proudly had vanished in front of everyone. Derek Shaw slowly stepped away from the front desk completely, placing distance between himself and the collapse unfolding beside him. Maya Bennett remained standing near Naomi now, still stunned that 20 minutes earlier she had been a nervous trainee afraid to speak, and now temporary authority over the entire lobby had been transferred to her. Naomi looked around the room slowly. Guests still held phones in their hands, but most were no longer recording. They were simply watching her, waiting. One of the women near the elevators lowered her phone first and quietly started clapping. The sound echoed softly through the marble lobby. Then another guest joined. Then another. Within seconds, the applause spread across the entire room. Not loud, not theatrical, just honest. Bradley lowered his eyes toward the counter while the applause continued around him. Naomi did not react to it. She had not walked into the Sterling Vale that night looking for attention. She came looking for truth, and she found it faster than even she expected. Claire's voice returned through the phone one final time. "Replacement management has entered the building, Ms. Whitaker." Naomi nodded slightly. "Thank you, Claire. Would you like legal review initiated immediately?" Naomi looked once toward Bradley Collins before answering. "Yes, full review. Include guest complaints from the last 3 years." Maya looked up sharply at that. Naomi noticed. "Patterns do not begin overnight," she said quietly. The elevator doors near the lobby entrance opened moments later, and 2 corporate executives stepped out carrying tablets and security folders. The moment they saw Naomi, both straightened immediately. "Ms. Whitaker," one of them said carefully. Naomi gestured calmly toward the front desk. "You are late." Neither executive smiled. They understood exactly what kind of night this had become. Bradley finally spoke again, but his voice sounded completely different now. Smaller. Exhausted. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Naomi turned toward him slowly. "That is the problem." Bradley looked confused. Naomi continued. "People like you think discrimination only counts if it is intentional. But bias does not need permission to cause damage." The lobby fell silent again. Naomi looked around at the polished floors, the crystal chandeliers, the expensive furniture she personally approved during the hotel renovation months earlier. "Luxury is not marble," she said quietly. "It is not designer furniture or rooftop views or $500 suites." She looked directly at Maya. "Luxury is dignity. It is making people feel respected before you know how much money they have." Maya nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Naomi stepped toward the elevator corridor leading to the private penthouse floors. Then she stopped one final time and turned back toward the room. "Tonight was never about a hotel reservation," she said. "It was about how quickly people decide who deserves comfort, trust, and basic respect." Her eyes moved briefly toward Bradley Collins. "You mistook silence for weakness. You mistook simplicity for worthlessness. And you mistook your position for power." Nobody in the lobby looked away. Naomi pressed the executive elevator button beside the marble wall. The doors opened instantly. Warm gold light spilled out across the floor. Before stepping inside, she looked once more at the room that had tried to reject her less than an hour earlier. "I did not raise my voice tonight," she said calmly. "I raised the standard." Then Naomi Whitaker stepped into the private elevator while the lobby remained frozen behind her. The doors closed softly. Upstairs, the penthouse lights waited for their rightful owner. Downstairs, a hotel that once judged people by appearance was finally being forced to look at itself instead.